Hello, and welcome to Warhammer 40k's Grim History from Beyond. I'm Zeckthar,
And I'm Yuksen.
and we are the chroniclers of all that was, and all that will be in the 41st millennium. We have seen the rise and fall of many empires, and this month we will be discussing the mysterious and sinister Inquisition of the Empire of Man.
Indeed, this month we will chronicle how they came to be, what role they play in the Imperium of Man, with some notable characters along the way. And as usual, we'll be ending this month with our Q&A, where we answer your questions you send us in the comments.
That's right, but before we start, if you like our stuff, feel free to follow, like, comment, and subscribe. And if you really like our boxes, feel free to join our membership program, like Sir Bender Byington, our very first member.
Quite right, brother. And thank you to our other two members, Hermes Skirty and Anarchy 138. Well, Zeckthar, what are we going to be talking about this week?
Well, this week we will be looking into the demon hunters, the Ordo Malleus.
Oh, I know. Why don't we first talk about their chamber militant, the Grey Knights?
Sure, but only briefly, yes?
Of course. Just like the other two chamber militants, the Sisters of Battle and the Death Watch, we will be spending an entire month discussing the Grey Knights.
Quite right. We will be discussing the Adeptus Sororitas, whose militant arm is the Sisters of Battle in June, the Grey Knights in July, and the Death Watch in August. On that note, shouldn't you let our listeners know what chamber militants actually are?
Right you are. As we mentioned last week, an Inquisitor can employ the services of any branch of the Imperial service, including the military, or anybody in the Imperium for that matter, with one notable caveat.
The chamber militants.
Yes, each major ordo maintains a dedicated militant arm, representing the most dedicated, experienced, and effective forces that particular ordo can call on. These are known as the chamber militants.
So, no matter what these three, the Inquisition can call upon, and they will answer no matter what, right?
Yes, but with a little leeway. Let me explain.
But of course.
Since they're connected to their own respective ordo, an inquisitor outside the ordo would probably be in the position of requesting and not ordering them to join the retinue. Of course, after being accepted, they do have significant control over the forces given.
But if it's a militant of that ordo of Inquisition, they answer no matter what, right?
Right. Probably. Maybe.
Huh?
Well, that's absolutely true with the nuns with guns and Death Watch, but the Grey Knights are so secretive that I'm going to pull mulligan on that one.
I got you.
The Grey Knights are, at least to most, a secret and mysterious chapter of Space Marines, specifically tasked with combating the dangerous demonic entities of the warp and all those mortals who wield the corrupt power of the Chaos Gods. They're created by the Emperor with the aid of Malcador the Sigillate at the time of the Horus Heresy to serve as humanity's greatest weapon against the threat posed by the existence of chaos. They have the honor of being implanted with gene seed engineered directly from the genome of the Emperor himself. The Grey Knights' fortress monastery, the Citadel of Titan, is based on Titan, the largest of the moons of the gas giant Saturn in the Sol system, is kept as a private preserve of the Inquisition. The existence of the highly secretive chapter is virtually unknown outside of the Inquisition and the highest echelons of the Imperial Adepta, and is a well-guarded secret enforced by mind wipes and even assassination of Imperial citizens if necessary. Unlike other Astartes, every Grey Knight is a potent psyker. Yet, in the 10,000 standard years of Imperial history, no Grey Knight has ever been corrupted by the ruinous powers of chaos. Additionally, the Grey Knights do not follow the tenets of the Codex Astartes in the matter of force organization. Due to the unique manner in which the Grey Knights are recruited and trained, each warrior progresses through a series of preordained ranks and will operate in a particular squad led by an individual of higher rank, rather than being assigned to a particular battle company. Well, enough about the Grey Knights. Let's get into the organization of the Malleus.
Quite right, brother. The Ordo Malleus is led by the Inquisitor Lords, known as the Hidden Masters. Unlike the other Ordos of the Inquisition, the Ordo Malleus has a more rigid and formalized hierarchy structure. It is controlled by a council of 169 Inquisitor Lords, known as Masters, all of whom have the right to have a direct audience with the Emperor himself, within the inner sanctum of the Imperial Palace, if they so request.
Really?
Apparently.
That's really weird. I mean, I understand that they can talk to him about the warp because they're psychers, but the Emperor's so far gone, what would they garner? My lord, we have a problem with a demon. And
Yes, anchovies go on pizza.
I mean, at this point, they're not getting much from the corpse lord.
True. But regardless, their authority even extends to the inquisitorial representative to the Senatorium Imperialis, some of who have been tried and executed by the masters of the Ordo in times past. Below the masters are the inquisitors known as the proctors, or proctors minor, with each being responsible for the leadership of a chamber practical of the Ordo Malleus. The chambers practical themselves are named after their founding proctor and serve as the basic organizational unit of the Ordo Malleus. Inquisitors Ordinary form the rank and file of the Ordo, whilst there exists a parallel organization called the Chambers Theoretical and Historical that consists of agents known as Inquisitors Historical. Inquisitors Historical are drawn from the older members of the Ordo who are unable to continue their active service, either to ill health, injury, or infirmity. Instead, they are assigned research and data collation projects at the Inquisitorial Administrative Libraries.
So, in other words, they get a desk job and do what we do.
Well, yes and no. While they carry on with the paperwork, your favorite part of our job, they do not carry on with the archaeological studies, my favorite work.
True, but we never get in trouble if I read a book. You keep coming home with specimens and we have to deal with untold problems.
Within the chamber practical, there are perhaps only a few hundred Inquisitors Ordinary and Historical in total across the galaxy. The chambers Theoretical and Historical, for their part, possess in total only a few score members that are engaged in research and disputation, whilst the chambers Practical are comprised of hundreds of Inquisitors who are responsible for operating within the various inquisitorial sector conclaves, of which the Ordo Malleus is a part, and joining with agents of the other Ordos of that conclave in the field. The Ordo Malleus works directly under the Emperor's warrant, and thus has a completely free hand in its operations. This means that an Inquisitor Ordinary of this Ordo is able to demand anything they see fit from any adepta or armed service of the Imperium, in order to accomplish their duty with no explanation being offered. Any imperial servant that meets with an Ordo Malleus Inquisitor must comply and obey their command. The most common demand made by Malleus Inquisitors is for troops to support their operations, though such forces rarely survive in the service of an Inquisitor Ordinary. This is not necessarily viewed as a problem by the Inquisitor, however, as they would be forced to mind wipe or otherwise eliminate these troops who have served them and been exposed to the realities of chaos. However, high public honors are given to those imperial units that are attached to the Ordo Malleus should they die in the service of the Inquisition, though the campaigns upon which these honors are earned remain sealed in the archives of the Ordos.
So no matter if they live or die, nobody knows what actually happened to them, and only in death do they receive renown, yes?
Mm-hmm.
That about checks out for any super secretive organization. Mind you, most similar organizations, they don't die, just simply disappear.
Most of the time, yes. Yet, sometimes, fate plays a hand in a person's fate.
You don't mean, oh no.
Oh dear God, where am I? That's Steve. Let me introduce you to Yuksen. Yuksen, Steve.
Hi, Steve, Zeckthar. What in all of Umkulu did you do?
Now, brother, don't get angry.
We're not supposed to bring people back to the Bastion. Sure, it was an accident when we brought back Vulcan, and the orcs Blagrod and Snotrick just happened to find us. But we can't just bring back people that are going to die.
I know. What?
We are chroniclers, Zeckthar, not finders of orphans and puppies.
Can I talk?
Ugh.
See, I brought Steve back because he has worked for all three inquisitorial ordos, but was sentenced to be silenced by the Malleus. I figured we could get his concept on what was what with the other Majoris, and then put him to work organizing the library.
Well, that's not a bad idea. But what about...
Oh, hear me? Why, you guys are the best. You brought us something to play with.
No, Snotrock. This is another one of our guests. I swear if you harm one hair on his head, I will cut off your arms and legs, and for fun, use you as a ball for all of our games.
But we's bored chopping those things you call dinos into bits.
Wait, are you telling me that's what you have been doing this entire time? Killing our dinosaurs?
Yep, well, except for Baz. He be a good one. We got him chasing the other ones down.
Why? Why are they still here?
Regardless, not a hair, Snotrock.
Okay.
Very good, Snotrock. Here's a treat. Now, would you mind showing our new guest, Steve, to his new quarters?
Okie dokie.
Anyways, where was I before I was interrupted? Yes. Members of the Ordo Malleus tend to favor simple yet sinister uniforms with black, loose-fitting habits over their armor, along with large hoods that hide their features in shadow. Graphic electus are an unofficial yet traditional addition to this uniform for many Malleus Inquisitors, as their glowing appearance beneath the skin adds a disturbing quality to the appearance of these Inquisitors, which they find useful in seeking to intimidate outsiders with an air of menace and mystery. By tradition, Inquisitors of the Ordo Malleus tend to have one electu for each coven of witches or heretics they have discovered and cleansed. As such, for the oldest Malleus Inquisitors, it is not uncommon for elaborate electu designs to be inscribed all across their body.
Like a light show, right?
I guess, man.
By that time, think about it. The electus are lit up, it's all over your body.
Well, regardless, they must be great at raves. Anyways, the designs of these electus have been fixed for generations, with the symbols intended to recall in a stylized manner each of the various demons and other chaos foes that the Inquisitor have faced and defeated. The rarely seen or used badge of the Ordo Malleus takes the form of the Imperial Aquila, holding a rod and an axe in each town, which is worn either on the shoulder or on the right breast. Masters and proctors of the Ordo Malleus are always psychers who carry force rods as a symbol of their authority, though in combat engagements this is often supplemented with a power weapon of the Inquisitor's choice. Inquisitors of the Ordo Malleus and their acolytes face the greatest threat in humanity's continued existence: chaos and the demons of the warp. The dark gods of chaos are the archenemy of mankind. Their ruinous powers and their demons seek to bring the veil, separating the materium and immaterium, crashing down and undo reality as we know it, plunging the galaxy into the madness of the warp. Although insidious heretics seek to undermine the Imperium from within, and alien abominations attack from without, the demons of the immaterium whisper their lies from beyond the fabrics of reality. Yet when the veil is rent asunder, demons invade real space in a great tide, slaughtering and unleashing cataclysmic destruction. Few warriors can even face such foe without succumbing to terror and madness. Even mere knowledge of such entities is restricted. Only the Inquisitors of the Ordo Malleus and their acolytes possess the knowledge, strength of will, and tools to stand against the demon. Although demons pose an almost inconceivable threat to mankind, they face certain limitations. Chief amongst these is the difficulty demons have manifesting and remaining in the material universe. Without the psychic energy of the warp to sustain them, demons are able to maintain a corporal form in real space for only so long. Breaching the veil and entering reality in the first place is only possible under certain circumstances. These limitations mean that the bulk of the Ordo Malleus' work consists not of banishing demons back to the warp, but preventing their arrival in the first place. Some demons are so apocalyptically powerful that there is no hope of defeating them in battle, and the only way to save a world or star system is to ensure the demon does not manifest. For a demon to manifest, the barrier between reality and the warp must be weakened and broken. There are a number of ways this can come about, both due to the actions of mortals and the vagaries of the warp. Even a sanctioned psyker risks opening a gateway to the warp with the use of their powers. And for this reason, some members of the Ordo Malleus share the same anti-psyker views of the most hard-line witch hunters of the Ordo Hereticus, even when they themselves are psykers. Malefic chaos cults often seek to summon demons, either to enact the cult's aims or as a simple act of devotion to the dark gods. The very movements of the warp, perhaps fed by the collective emotions of mortals, disturbed by the activities of psykers, or set in motions eons ago, can in rare cases push against the veil of reality until it tears open. What all these potentialities share is either a warp rift that allows demons to manifest physical forms in reality, or the possession of a mortal host body. It is not necessary, however, for a demon to manifest in reality in order to threaten humanity. Demons communicate with mortals from the depths of the warp, and psykers are particularly susceptible to these whispers and visions. Often, such contact is the precursor to the demon entering reality, as it establishes a link in order to corrupt and possess a mortal, or instruct a mortal in the ways of its summoning. There are many reasons a mortal might fall to a demon's temptations: a lust for power, wealth, adoration, revenge. All of these and more are mortal weaknesses a demon might exploit. Even if the interaction does not lead to the demon's emergence in the physical universe, a mortal under demonic influence might undertake all manner of evil deeds. Powerful psykers and influential figures corrupted by chaos can cause untold damage, igniting wars and leading star systems, even entire sectors, into eternal damnation. Because of the nature of demons, the early stages of the Ordo Malleus investigations often deal with mortals enthralled to demons. In many cases, a successful mission might mean preventing a chaos cult from summoning a demon, or destroying a rogue psyker before they succumb to possession. In this way, the work of the Ordo Malleus overlaps that of the Ordo Hereticus. However, while Inquisitors of the Ordo Hereticus focus on human traitors and witches themselves, the servants of the Ordo Malleus concern themselves always with the true threat of the demon. Better to prevent that threat from materializing. But if the worst does happen, the warriors of the Ordo Malleus possess the knowledge and tools to fight against the demonic. The servants of the Ordo Malleus must often investigate secretive chaos cults with aspirations to summon demons, or even plunge whole worlds into the hellish madness of the warp. Depending on the nature of the enemy and the preferred methods of the inquisitorial warband, this might entail infiltrating a cult in order to learn the threats it possesses and even uncover its dark secrets in order to turn such knowledge against other enemies. Other inquisitors might conscript local armed forces in order to flush out the heretics and launch a full-scale assault on their compound. There are many heretics who unknowingly threaten to bring demons into reality. Although a scholar of forbidden lore might not think themselves a devotee of chaos, by opening their mind to the secrets of the warp, they draw the attentions of its denizens. A noble dilettante who collects warp-touched artifacts might unwittingly release the power they contain and open a warp rift. Guardsmen of the Militarum, and even space marines who enter battle against the forces of chaos, and particularly against incarnate demons, risk corruption that might, if unchecked, transform them into the very enemy they battled against. All too often, inquisitors of the Ordo Malleus and their acolytes are too late to stop a demonic summoning, or a warp rift might open without warning. Sometimes, an inquisitorial warband's first indication that there is a threat comes from the presence of demons in real space, whether scheming in the shadows or slaughtering in the Haboys. When demons step foot in the material universe, it is the sacred duty of the Ordo Malleus to banish them back into the immaterium. Often, once a demon is manifest in reality, only inflicting great damage to its corporeal form can disrupt its hold enough to return it to the warp. For this reason, combat can be a major part of Ordo Malleus's investigations. Demons are the most dangerous and horrifying foes imaginable, and even for veteran demon hunters, each encounter is a momentous experience. Not only are demons powerful adversaries that show a host of strange warp-spawned abilities, but their mere presence can taint the soul and shatter the minds of hardened warriors. Because of this, Inquisitors and Acolytes often cannot count on local law enforcement and military forces for aid in combat, as few are likely to possess the strength of will necessary to overcome their fear in the face of demonic foes. In order to successfully battle demons, Acolytes must not only be capable combatants, but strong enough of will to maintain their composure. Heavy weapons and sanctified blades are of no use if the warriors fall apart in the presence of this horrific enemy. But what do you think of these secret guys, Yuksen?
I think that they have a horrible job that they need to do. But on top of that, it truly is understandable why, after a few times dealing with the demonic, it would have such a skewed viewpoint that most of them do.
Right.
One of the things when you're talking about demons and stuff is they basically, one of the things that they do is have them, and I assume also their retinue will wear consecrated scrolls to help repel psychic and demonic stuff, along
Right.
with using their own.
Kind of
And
like a
then
shield. Yeah.
Also, another thing that's unique is once in a great while, the Inquisitor will have what's called Grimoire of True Names that they'll carry out to the battlefield or just carry with them. And it has in it basically the true names of known demons.
Well, isn't the whole point behind that is that if you know the true name of a demon, you can control it pretty much?
Or you can at least do significant damage to them.
Right. Or send it back, right?
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's why, what was it? It was when, what's his name? Fulgrim. When Fulgrim became a demon prince, I believe at one point, one of the other Primarchs had his, or one of the other Space Marines had his true name. So it was after he became a demon prince before the Siege of Terra. That's the kind of that's where I'm talking about. And I can't remember who had it.
After Lorgar
name.
fled, then.
Yeah, I think so. And if I recall right, it was I think it was one of the other Primarchs that had his true name. And they tried. Well, no. Actually, it might have actually been Lorgar.
No, it was what ended up happening was Lorgar tried to use him to remove Horus.
Right.
And
right.
failed because the person who was in control of it went, nah, I'm not going to do that, and basically betrayed Lorgar.
All right, hang on. Let me look this up real quick. And okay, here's what happened. After Horus issued his muster for the traitor Primarchs to gather on Ulanor in preparation for the march to Terra, Fulgrim still could not be found. Thus, Lorgar volunteered to find Fulgrim and bring him back to Horus's war effort. By accessing the webway, Lorgar found out where Fulgrim was, in the Palace of Slaanesh. Inside, he found Fulgrim engaged in debauchery and degeneracy with his new consort, Nakara. Now, Fulgrim refused Lorgar's demand to come back to Ulanor with him, stating he simply did not care about the war anymore. Lorgar refused to back down, and the two sides began to fight. As Fulgrim was about to strike Lorgar, the Dark Apostle Zardu Leak uttered the secret true name of Fulgrim's newly elevated demonic form. Thus, Fulgrim was bound to the will of Leak and forced to come with Lorgar. Now, as Fulgrim's coming back, he's bringing back the Emperor's children with him, but this wasn't really what Lorgar wanted to do. He truly intended to use the enslaved Fulgrim as part of a plan for him to kill Horus and take his place as War Master. However, when Lorgar's coup quickly unraveled, when the Oracle Actia revealed his plans to Horus, and Zardu Leak freed Fulgrim from his binding instead of ordering him to attack Horus as originally intended, Fulgrim urged Horus to kill Lorgar, but instead the Primarch was banished from the War Master's sight after a vicious beating. So there you go anyways with the concept of true demon names and the history of Fulgrim and his true name. Anywho, So yeah, true names, anyways, of demons are incredibly important. Like you were saying, yeah, it's just I don't know. These guys they're pretty much, anyways, how you kind of would picture Inquisitor. They're incredibly secretive. They're incredibly powerful. When they show up, anyways, nothing good is going on. And if you ever happen to meet one, anyways, you're pretty much screwed. You don't. There is no. We're getting out of this alive. It's just you're done. So, which
Unless they feel that you're worthy enough to become part of the retinue.
Right. But if I recall right, anyways, don't all Inquisitors have to be an orphan? Or is that commissars?
I don't think either is the case. More than likely, you're thinking of most assassins are.
Well, I know most assassins are orphans, but I thought well, maybe it was commissars. Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Like Ibrahim Gaunt, anyways, was a orphan.
Okay. One commissar. And he was an orphan because he was then raised by his uncle.
Well, he was raised in the Schola Progenium on Cardinal something or other. But yeah, so the Schola Progenium, that's the place that trains commissars, takes in children from orphans and dead imperial elites and educates them to be commissars, stormtroopers, imperial navy officers, assassins, inquisitors, and sororitas members, and also administrative officials. So yeah, so I guess all of them start out as orphans, which kind of, if you stop and think about it, anyways, it's probably a good thing because there's got to be a boatload of orphans in the Imperium of Man because people just drop like flies. So, yeah. Well, brother, before we take our leave for the day, I found a particular Inquisitor I wish to discuss, but I believe you've found one yourself.
Indeed. Today I wish to discuss Torquemada Coteaz, the feared High Protector of Formosa. Now, to give you a little understanding of his character, I will let the man speak for himself, and quote from Coteaz himself. And he said,
"There are amongst our Ordo those who say that I seek advancement for my own purposes, and they are correct. My purpose is to destroy the demonic, and if I must rise to command an entire sector to do so, then so be it. I am a servant of the Emperor, and only those who consult with warp spawn need fear my ambition."
So, Torquemada Coteaz has ever been driven by a single consuming passion to destroy demons wherever they manifest. Unlike many of his fellow radical inquisitors of the Ordo Malleus, Coteaz always refused to contemplate harnessing the power of the warp for his own end, and aggressively prosecuted those who lacked his purity. Torquemada Coteaz is a famous, feared, and respected inquisitor of the Ordo Malleus, whose reputation among senior masters of the Ordo Malleus was cemented by an incident in the Formosa sector. This incident occurred during a meeting at the Conclave of Veloth. The meeting had been called by the noble inquisitor Loredian, High Protector of Formosa, and also Coteaz's mentor, who brought him up through the ranks. At the conclave, Loredian displayed a powerful demon-bound crystal he had taken from a chaos cult he had recently purged. He launched into an eloquent speech about how the crystal's power could be used for the good of the Imperium by rooting out heretics and cultists. As Loredian concluded his address, Coteaz rose from his seat and marched to the center of the auditorium and smashed the crystal with his demon hammer and declared Loredian a blasphemer and a trafficker in abominations, declaring him extremis diabolus. Extremis diabolus is the most serious accusation that an inquisitor can possibly give. It is used most often by inquisitors of the Ordo Malleus for consorting with or being under the influence of demons, witchcraft, practicing forbidden arts, and heresy against the emperor are all grounds for pronouncement of extremis diabolus. This stunning act of impropriety threw the assembly into an uproar until Coteaz produced an hourglass and promised to prove his accusations before the sand ran out. Loredian was forced to face his accuser, And in the examination that followed, it was revealed they had not only sanctioned the use of demon hosts, but had read prescribed text and employed the tools of the enemy. Faced with such incontrovertible evidence, Laurentian was found guilty of heresy against the emperor. He was executed by Coteaz himself, and his ashes were fired into the heart of a star. For his efforts in unmasking Laurentian, Coteaz was named High Protector of Formosa, a position he had long coveted. Though some amongst the Ordo Malleus found his rapid rise through the Ordo distasteful, none could deny the vigor with which Coteaz performed his duties. But if Coteaz was ruthless in his ambition, his motives were pure. To better combat the demonic foes of mankind, he must be able to command. The hourglass became as much a symbol of his authority as his mighty demon hammer, and every heretic brought before him would confess his crimes before the sand had run its course. Coteaz became known as the scourge of the Zecktharites after his extermination of their backwards, spirit-worshipping culture during the Lorgamar Rebellion. And, under his discretion, the demon worshippers of the Medarian Nebula were purged, a feat that saw him elevated to the rank of Inquisitor Lord by the secret masters of Ordos Formosa. The hive of Opridia were cleansed of the taint of the Plague Lord in the Great Scourging of 956.M41. And the following decade, Inquisitor Lord Coteaz destroyed the demon engineers of the Clavoda Forge World. For this act, a grateful Adeptus Mechanicus rewarded Coteaz with a Cyber Eagle, an augmented creature through which Coteaz would be able to channel his already formidable psychic powers. Demons returned to Opridia in 972.M41. And during the cleansing of Opridia, Coteaz purged the demon hosts and killed demon prince Carpathy with the help of the Exorcist's chapter. Utterly dedicated and utterly ruthless, he has become a terrifying figure throughout the sector, the sight of his hourglass striking dread into the hearts of those confronted by it. And many would confess their blasphemies before a hand was laid upon them. Coteaz's retinue swelled by the hundreds, then thousands, as his influence and power grew throughout the sector. He could command the holiest of men, warriors beyond compare, and the finest minds the collegias could produce. Throughout his years of service in the Ordo Malleus, Coteaz has never lost the desire to confront those who would consort with the demonic on the battlefield, to smite them down with his hammer, or to break them in the cells below the inquisitorial fortress of Nemesis Tessera. And it is said by many that his name alone is enough to end the threat of the diabolic. Lately, Coteaz has cast his interest over the worlds of the Formosa sector. Yet, even as he finds new successes, he has come to realize that he is now an old man and fears that leaving his work undone without a successor will make his struggle futile. Thus, Coteaz has begun to search for forgotten fragments of cloning law and alien rejuvenation technology. Any means of extending his life save those demonic in nature. Nonetheless, he knows that summoning a demon and using it to extend his life given the proper ritual could be easily granted. Despite a small part of him wishing to embrace this, he has thus far resisted the temptation. So, brother, what do you think about this Puritan Inquisitor?
I think he's becoming more radical every day. I don't know, man. He's kind of a dark character. Here I got a question for you, anyways, because he's still around, right?
Yes.
He hasn't been knocked off yet. So, what do you think would happen if he actually met up with Rabute Gilliman?
He probably wouldn't like the fact that Rabute Gilliman has dealt with demon hosts.
You think? This is the guy that killed his own mentor. I mean, All I could think, anyways, is that he would either one of two things would happen. Either A, he would stick to his guns like he always has, which would mean, well, he would find his death then, because Gilliman wouldn't have any of that. Or two, he would, bite his tongue, which doesn't really seem like this guy is very good at that.
Well, here's the thing. If you notice, okay, so when it came to his mentor was basically saying, I'm giving everybody permission to use demon hosts.
Huh? I thought it was just because he had this orb thing.
No. It was, the orb was there, and it was yet another thing on his record, basically.
Well, okay, so it sounds like, anyways, what started this whole thing, anyways, is he shows up with this powerful demon-bound crystal, right?
Right.
And he starts talking about how they could use the crystal's powers for the use of the Imperium by rooting out heretics and cultists. I don't know how that works, anyways, with this crystal. I'm assuming it's like a homing beacon or something along those lines, anyways, when it comes to chaos.
Demon down, so that's a strike right there. I mean,
Sorry, say that again?
Well, first of all, it's demon bound, which in my mind would be a first strike anyways. But
okay.
But the fact that he basically found not only that he sanctions the use of demon hosts, which is different from just saying, okay, I will use, he's going, okay, anybody in any of my underlings can also use them. It's okay.
I don't know where it says that. It says not only did he sanction the use of demon hosts, but he had read prescribed texts and employed the tools of the enemy.
Right.
So this sounds like he's using demonic artifacts.
In some cases would be like, okay, that's almost a gray area. But on top of that, he had done things like reading texts that he shouldn't have been reading and employing tools that probably were less than sketchy.
So how is that any different than from what a lot of the stuff that Rabute has done in recent times?
As far as I'm aware of, most recently, the only thing in relation to that he's done has been he has a demon host that he's talked to.
He summoned a demon host at one point so that he could answer, I believe it was 9 questions or something like that. He could get 9 questions answered from demons from the Immaterium. I mean, mind you, anyways, it's not because he's, wanting to do these things. Gilliman is doing this because he thinks it's a necessity.
And
it's not
demon hosts are things that quite literally it's like, okay, these things they actually have in their retinue. That's what a sanctioned demon host is.
So,
something that you even have in your own retinue and use to combat with.
Well, except for, I would think anyways, Coteaz doesn't have any of this retinue because anything that has to do with demons, he just crushes. He seems like a very black and white guy. So this concept anyways that Gilliman has used demon hosts to get questions answered anyways beyond the Immaterium by demons, I figured Coteaz would have a problem with that. That's why I asked anyways, what do you think would happen anyways if he met up with Gilliman? So you got 2 guys here anyways.
I got the idea.
With immense power, but no, this is the thing that I find interesting with both with immense power. One of them anyways is looking through the eye scope anyways that I'll do anything to make sure that humanity survives. Anything. I'll do anything. And then you got this other guy anyways that literally has these fast rules that says, I will not do anything that has to do with demon hosts in the warp.
Right.
Just evil. I don't care anyways if humanity dies. This is not a mark that I'm going to pass.
He's just going, I'm not passing this line. I don't
right. No, that's what I just said anyways. This is that I don't, even if humanity were to be expunged from the solar system, this is the line that I will not cross.
Right.
So you get 2 of these guys in a room. What do you think happens?
If he has that mindset because he knows if he thinks otherwise, then he'll slide off and just kind of like, I could do so much better and not have to worry about anything if I just bound myself to a demon. I mean,
Well, I think it's also the concept, anyways, that he's killed so many people, anyways, that have crossed that line. If he crosses it himself, anyways, he would probably think of himself as a hypocrite.
Yeah. I think
And
that's
really,
reason
it would probably
why.
crush his soul more than anything else.
Yeah, I think personally the whole thing about them going, well, he has resists so far. It's like, no, he'll probably resist till he dies for multiple reasons. One is his conviction. The
Right.
second thing is he's already put in this position and he's going like, okay, I can't find anybody that's at the level that I'm at now. So what? I'm going to screw up the level that it is at now.
What do you mean?
Well, I already have this expectation.
Okay.
And what sort of example would I be leaving if I don't meet this expectation?
So pride.
And then on top of that is being a hypocrite or being a poor example by not following through with that. That's the other part that I think it is like, well, if I also fail where I am saying that need to be, then what sort of person do I show? Because he is in control of an entire sector. So it's not just
Right.
like he makes one mistake and, oh, well, that's too bad. No.
Well, I'm assuming that he's probably made mistakes in the past. It's just,
Yes,
and still does. It's just,
but not in this particular direction.
Right,
And this
right.
wouldn't be an accident.
Right. It would be a choice made. Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
But like I said before, anyways, what do you think would happen if these two guys actually happen to meet? I'm assuming at some point or another, anyways, they have crossed paths. Maybe not
Right.
like physically cross paths, but they obviously know of each other, right?
Yeah.
And
I think, quite honestly, because he also does seem to be somebody who actually thinks things through first. Hence
Mhm.
why he didn't just immediately try to go up and slaughter his mentor. And he's just like, okay, I have all this evidence that I can present instead of just throwing out a wild accusation. I have all this information that I'm going to present to you guys.
right, but I mean, the effect was still the
So
same.
he thinks things through, and I think he would think it through and go, okay, reality time. What can I do to change things? Now, I know I can't kill him because I won't be able to do it. Well, not unless he's going to try to do it in his sleep, which I can't see him really doing either. But
I don't think at this point, anyways, Gilliman is so protected. I don't think there's what's the expression? Not a snowball's chance in hell. he could kill Gilliman. I think the only person, anyways, in the Imperium right now that could kill Gilliman if he really wanted to is maybe the Lion. But that's it. I mean, I can't think of anybody else even that comes close.
well, he did have to get rescued by the Fallen, didn't he?
the
Oh,
Fallen.
that's beside the point. Yeah.
Or are you talking about the Lion?
No. Gilliman. Towards
Well,
the very
okay.
beginning of the Crusade.
In the beginning of the Dominus Crusade?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of, you know me anyways. I'm more 30th millennia
Well,
as opposed to
I don't think
41st.
it's the Dominus Crusade. It was when he was trying to travel to Terra.
Oh, after the Ultramar campaign?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
And they were basically saved by some Harlequins and, oddly enough, Cypher and some Fallen.
But that was also before he really gained power of the Imperium. He was on his way to do that. And there have been times anyways where Rabute Gilliman has gotten into peril. I mean, like for instance, he fought Mortarion. Yeah, there was a lot of peril there. Could have gone either way, you know. Or what was the other one? He ended up fighting a greater demon of corn or something along those lines too. So yes, I understand. Anyways, it's not like he's invincible. I'm just saying someone within the Imperium trying to get to him and kill him. I just don't see it. He's got too much backing. He's too powerful at this point. It would take a huge army to do it, or the Lion, who's kind of an army unto himself. And not only that, but he also garners enough respect that he could literally walk past a whole bunch of people and get anyways close enough to Gilliman. Or of course,
Right.
there's also Alfarius, but we won't get into that. Yeah, so this guy, anyways, I find his character drastically changing now that he's getting older. This concern of, I think, by the way, the concern, anyways, of like, oh, I'll leave my work behind and there's no one here to do it. I think there's a couple things that you can kind of read from that. One is that and I think you'll agree with me on this, anyways. He's a rather prideful individual. If you were looking at the man's faults, pride would probably be right up there towards the top, right? Now, mind you, he's a beast, so
I
there's a
think
lot to be
that
proud about, but
yeah, he may be proud, but I think at the same time he does realize that even if it is pride, it's also he doesn't really have anybody that he feels can match up to the job once he's gone. So he's going, oh crap.
which to me, anyways,
And
is
things are piling up more and more. It's kind of like Horace, when he's just like, oh great, everything's piling up on me. What am I gonna do?
well, it's okay. There's a little bit of a difference here, okay?
Yeah, I know there's a difference, but still.
The arrogance of this, though, is just the concept of if he dies, then the Ordo Malleus and his segmentum is just going to be in an upheaval, and nothing will work because he's gone. That's not how organizations work. The machine keeps moving. It's kind of like on Terran 42, if you're like, even if you're like a store manager at a grocery store and you're just like, I don't know if anyways they'll be able to carry on without me. Oh, they will. Everybody is expendable. That's kind of the way it works in an organization. Everyone is expendable. So to me, anyways, that's pretty arrogant. But the other thing, though, is that I think that whole concept of, well, I can't die because my work is not done yet and there's no one here anyways to take over for me. I think a lot of that is also a smokescreen anyways of him realizing his own mortality. That makes sense.
Yeah, but yeah. I think the fact though that he hasn't found a successor is interesting in itself also.
He's probably found a few that he thought would be good and then he ends up killing them. It seems that anybody gets around this guy, he ends up murdering.
Or somebody else stole him.
Or yeah, something.
He's like, I got this guy all the way up here. And another Inquisitor goes, hey, you're coming with me. It's like, no! Why?
Okay, so before we move on, though, I do have a question for you. When do you think, anyways, he's going to switch over? Because he's starting to become, I think you'll agree with me on this, anyways. I would agree with you, anyways, that he's a Puritan, but he is slowly moving more and more towards the radical thinking.
Unfortunately, this is where another question comes in.
Yes.
Puritans and radicals, is that specified for each separate ordo or all of them in an entirety?
What do you mean?
Like, depending on their actions in that particular ordo or in the actions of each different type of ordo. Like, for example,
go ahead.
Well, for example, in this case, somebody has, let's just say somebody in the Ordo Malleus has Xenos working for him.
Okay.
Is that person considered radical?
Probably more radical than Puritan, yeah. Like you said last week, anyways, I think Puritans and radicals, they're viewed more on like a spectrum than it's just you're either a radical or a Puritan. So, like, for instance, last week we talked about Greyfax, and we think, anyways, that she's more of a Puritan, but the farther she's moved along in the Dominus Crusade era, she's starting to swing a little bit more towards the radical aspect of looking at things, if that makes sense. I would still say she's still a Puritan, but some of the stuff that she's started doing, anyways, is a little bit more radical than what she used to do in the past. I'd say the same thing, anyways, with Coteaz, is that, I mean, he's been mostly, anyways, just straight up as Puritan as you can get, but with his older age, anyways, he's starting to do more radical things. And I think actually when we looked up Puritans and radicals, they kind of state that, anyways, is that radicals are normally, anyways, older Puritans that have slowly just kind of moved down the line, and now they've got a little bit more radical thinking.
Right.
Because remember, if you go too far radical, then you become a heretic, and then you get killed. So
too radical, like, for example, sanctioning demon hosts and rain prescribed text. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know a guy like that.
So like I said, anyways, where do you think he is, anyways, on that spectrum, anyways?
I
between
think
Puritan and radical.
with his mindset, he has probably set boundaries for himself. I mean, he's still delving into I think he set a boundary of, okay, the only thing I'm focusing on that's even related to Xenos tech is something with rejuvenation technology. That's it. Anything else? No, just screw it.
Yeah, that's what he says now. But then, in a year or so, he's like, ooh, what's that cool Xenos weapon that you got there, Eisenhorn? He's like, well, this is my new blah, 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 blah. Well, that's pretty cool. I want one. Well, maybe we'll just go ahead and maybe Xenos weapons are okay, but only if I use them. And then, well, maybe
I
a couple of
doubt
my
that because he seems to be pretty attached to his demon hammer.
Well, okay, yeah, I know he loves it. But he also uses a bolt pistol. So who knows? Maybe instead, he gets a Xenos plasma pistol or something like that. He's also got that goofy eagle dude, but yeah, that's another story.
Which I find interesting how the Adeptus Mechanicus would actually feel enough to have gratitude.
That's another thing that kind of warns me about this guy. If the Adeptus Mechanicus likes him, he's not okay in my book normally. That's normally the way it goes. If it's the Adeptus Mechanicus is cool with somebody, it's like that sends up warning flags to me. It's like, uh-oh.
Or it makes you wonder how far along are the Adeptus Mechanicus on this planet.
Yeah, or something. Yeah.
They've only been around for a century. Okay, that makes sense. Interesting thoughts. But who was the Inquisitor you looked into?
Well, I researched Jaq Draco.
Oh no, not this guy again.
Yes. Now, bear with me, folks. Yuksen is not a fan of this guy because of, well, I'll explain in a bit. Now, Jaq Draco was born sometime in the late 38th millennium on Xerxes Quintus, a low-technology imperial agri-world that was rife with psychers and mutants. The planet was isolated from the rest of the galaxy for thousands of standard years and was only recontacted by the Imperium about a Terran century prior to Draco's birth. He grew up in the Adeptus Ministerium's orphanage after his parents, who were imperial geneticists assigned to the planet, were murdered by possessed Xerxes psychers. Yeah, see, there's another orphan. Draco was a curious child who was not satisfied with commonly accepting conventions, and these traits would never leave him. At 12, he developed a singular psychic abilities of extraordinary purity, including the ability to perceive the Astronomicon and the ability to hide his psychic presence from warp entities. He was subsequently taken by a black ship, and his potent psychic abilities ultimately led to the induction into the Inquisition, and specifically the hidden chambers of the Ordo Malleus. Now, before I continue on, Yuksen, you mind giving a brief description on the black ships? We haven't really talked about them, although they are fairly important.
To put it simply, the black ships are basically the people that come by and pick up anything that would be generally seen as, well, either it needs to be destroyed or it's going to be kept and made for our purposes, be it either Inquisitor or sanctioned psyker or just some, well, in one case, it's recorded that they turned something basically into a lump of flesh that could telepathically communicate and predict the future.
Well, okay, if I recall right, anyways, anything that's picked up by a black ship has to do with the warp, though, right? It's mainly psyker abilities.
Mainly.
Pull.
Yeah.
So, like any psychers that the Imperium is going to use, the black ships are the ones that can pick them up, or like you said, anyways, or the well, pretty much anybody with a psyker capability, pretty much, is picked up by the black ships at some point or another.
If not by like another Inquisitor or something.
Yeah. Well, anyways, thank you for that. But in a short time, and while still at a young age, he became a successful and respected member of the Demon Hunters. By the time he was 35 standard years of age, his body was covered from the neck down in ritual markings and tattoos, each commemorating a victory over a demonic entity. However, Draco was not a dogmatic member of the Puritan faction of the Inquisition and was always prepared to entertain doubts, especially where the lives of his retinue or the imperial civilians were at stake. So this guy is a good example, Yuksen, of a radical, probably. So we haven't really, at this point anyways, all the Inquisitors that we have talked about, none of them have been radicals, yes? Other than that one guy, the one guy, the virus bombed those planets. What was his name again?
You mean
Cryptman, thank you. Well, anyways, now early in the 39th millennium, while on a mission to the planet Stalinvost, Draco was approached by Zephyro Carnelin, an agent of the Illuminati, who saw him as a potential recruit. The Illuminati's allied Assyrian Farseers had foreseen the recruitment of Draco into the Illuminati's ranks as a necessity to stave off a terrible disaster for the entire galaxy in the future. He was initially manipulated by the Illuminati into joining the Ordo Hydra, a rogue faction of the Illuminati that operated within the Inquisition as an unwilling double agent. After finding out the true nature of the Ordo Hydra and his plan to psychically enslave humanity in the hope of using the concentrated psychic power of the entire species to destroy chaos, he traveled to Terra with his associates, entered the Imperial Palace, and telepathically communed with the Emperor within the Sanctum Imperialis in the Imperial Palace where the Golden Throne lies. Draco informed the Emperor of the plot and asked him to take steps to prevent it from coming to fruition. The audience with the Emperor was an experience that left Draco both confused about the stability of the Emperor's mind within the warp and doubtful that the Imperium would be able to weather the many threats to its existence. What actions the Emperor and the Imperium took against the Ordo Hydra is not recorded, but clearly their plot was defeated. Following these events, Draco entered stasis for 100 standard years. Sometime after waking up, he learned of his manipulation by the Illuminati and the Eldari. He had been declared a renegade by the Inquisition. In the interim, because of the Stalinvost exterminatus he had ordered and his collusion with the Illuminati, and subsequently accomplished another unique feat. Without the Eldari's knowledge and accompanied by his associates, he managed to enter the webway, find the location of the legendary Black Library, enter it, and abscond with the Book of Rayana Dandre, an eschatological prophetic Eldari volume outlined the end times of the galaxy. After learning of the Eldari lexicon from a captured Harlequin, Draco used the information of the book in Rayana Dandre, as well as his psychic abilities to help him find a legendary and hitherto unknown location in the webway that was also the object of a millennia-long search by the Harlequins, a particular crossroads where the time is in flux and can be reversed. After some unforeseen developments in that location, and thinking that his plans had failed, a despairing and remorseful Draco tricked one of his associates into believing that he was possessed by a demon of Zinj. As was prearranged in case of such a dangerous eventuality, his companion then killed him on the spot. However, it seems that Draco's consciousness survived and was last shown to be roaming the webway as a disembodied spiritual presence. It is not known whether the location of Draco's death, the crossroad within the webway of no time or flexible time, had anything to do with his consciousness surviving outside of the warp.
Yes, as consciousness is so unfortunately stuck in the webway.
Indeed. But if I recall right, you had a hand in that, yes?
What?
You put up the shields on the exits of the webway, so his subconscious couldn't find its way out. I remember you saying, if he found his way to the Black Library, he could find us. And so you placed a shield on the exit so he could never get out.
You seriously think I sound like that?
Yep.
Well, my thoughts on this Inquisitor are, first off, he's a very strange individual to have to specifically state that to his men that, if I get possessed, kill me. Like, they wouldn't do that anyways. Confusing individual to begin with.
Right. Well, he's a radical.
Of course, he was messing with the Cabal, so I guess that's understandable.
Well, no. The Illuminati, not the Cabal.
Oh, sorry.
Different secret organization.
Sorry. The other.
Another one. Great.
Another one. Right, I forgot the Cabal was eliminated, so this is the one, I guess, that replaced it.
Both run by Alfarius. But
No, the
Kidding.
Cabal wasn't. The Cabal tried to get him.
so that's what the story is. But I'm betting anyways Alfarius had a hand anyways at starting because it's Alfarius. But
Right.
anyways. Yeah, he's kind of a kooky one. The thing that shocks me the most, though, is that he ended up getting into, and then leaving without anybody knowing, the Black Library.
Well,
There have been people for years that have been trying to find that place and never been able.
did nobody know that he left, or was it he was just able to leave?
Nobody knew that he left. He came, he saw, he left with a book. And the only reason that they ever found out that he was there anyways was because they found out that the book was gone. To me, that's fairly impressive.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, who's the guy that keeps trying to find the Black Library but can never find it? We
I
talked
don't know.
about
I know there's that one Chaos guy that was either tried to or did or
Was it Aramon?
tried to find it.
That sounds like something Aramon is probably trying to do.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, there's him, and then I want to say the other one was like, probably Trazine, just so because he wants to steal all the books. But that's probably one of those just kind of like, well, whatever. If it's there, it's there. But if we find it, we're definitely stealing stuff from it.
Right.
I thought there was another guy that was actually of some importance. Maybe I'm thinking maybe it was Fabulous Bile.
Well,
Yeah, that guy.
Fabius,
Fabius, thank you.
or is it Fabius?
Fabius, I don't remember. I really don't like the guy, so
I don't care much for the Chaos Space Marines or demons or anything like that, so I don't really remember their names very well.
oh yeah. But I don't know. There's some of them anyways that I find fairly interesting. Like for instance, Aramon. Aramon's kind of an interesting chaos demon or chaos space marine. And then Abaddon's fairly interesting. And then you've also got Blackheart, Huron Blackheart. Anyways, but before we leave, what was the Minoris that we were going to be discussing? So real quick, anyways, like I said last week, every week that we do one of the Majoris, we were also going to briefly discuss one of the Minoris. So, Yuksen, what Minoris are we going to be talking about this week?
Well, that would be the Ordo Sicarius.
Ooh, they're cool.
Now let's start with a bit of background, shall we? Following the Age of Apostasy, led by Gauche Fondir, came the Wars of Vindication within the Office of Assassins itself. The Officio had become riddled with corruption, and the Grand Master of Assassins brought it to its knees in order to purge it. Following a thorough investigation, Inquisitor Jaq deemed that a special order of Inquisition was needed to monitor and control the Officio much more closely. He proposed his proposal was accepted, and the Ordo Sicarius was created to monitor the office for signs of corruption and to expose and to punish the responsible parties. At the Inquisition's request, the Officio Assassinorum also agreed to the following changes. The assassin temples were to be redistributed to various locations so that should one of them be corrupted by alien influence, demonacy, or heresy, the others would remain untainted. Number 2, any assassination order requires a 2/3 majority vote of assent from the High Lords of Terra. 3, all assassinations are followed by a detailed report of the mission, subject to inquisitorial inspection at any time. 4, all assassins, with the exception of the Everster Temple, undergo regular repeated psychodoctrination under the eye of the Inquisition if deemed necessary. I feel at this time I should note that, due to practicality, even the Ordo Sicarius breaks these rules sometimes. After all, the ancient decree that no Imperial assassin may be deployed without the consent of the High Lords of Terra is highly impractical. As such, it is not uncommon for Inquisitor of the Ordo Sicarius to sanction the Officio Assassinorum under the guise of an edict from Terra. While some believe this to be an abuse of their power, In a galaxy-spanning civilization, such measures are essential to maintain an adequate level of response to the myriad threats faced by mankind. Since the Officio Assassinorum is a highly secretive branch of the imperial hierarchy, the only way to properly monitor its operatives was to plant assassin acolytes and inquisitors within their ranks. Acolytes of the Ordo Sicarius often find themselves placed within the trusted circles of many high-ranking members of the Imperium, or on loan to inquisitors of other Ordos, where their skill set would be extremely useful. The Ordo Sicarius has, to date, successfully uncovered and prevented 2 assassination attempts on the High Lords of Terra themselves, and also prevented the assassination of an Inquisitor who had been working closely with orcs in the Lamina sector. Well, before we go, what do you think of this Minoris?
Wait a minute. They prevented an assassination of an Inquisitor who was working with orcs?
Yeah.
But wouldn't you want to
Closely with
assassinate
orcs.
that Inquisitor?
Closely with orcs. Keyword closely.
So what do you think he was doing?
He was probably hiring them.
Hiring freebooters?
Yeah,
fair enough.
probably. Instead of going, I shall work for you. It's like, no.
Okay. Well, anyways.
Which is probably the thing that Papio's like, no, hold on. It's closely. He isn't actually working for them.
Yeah.
He's working with them.
The Ordo Sicarius, I think, is probably one of they're the policemen of assassins, which has got to be probably one of the hardest jobs in the Imperium, I would have to think. They're trained by the assassins to watch the assassins and make sure that they don't assassinate the wrong people.
Right.
And if necessary, assassinate the assassins. So there's a lot of assassinating going on here.
And I do love the fact that they actually have practical sense, though, and going, there's no way that out of the thousands of assassination missions that should be plotted that we can pass every single one of them in front of the High Lords of Terra.
Which I think there's 4 of them, right?
I don't know how many there are.
Well, I think the High Lords of Terra, I think there are 4 of them, but then the Senatorium Imperialis has got a whole lot more. But yeah, could you, all the High Lords of Terra could
we have another 100 for you. But it's tea time. Sorry.
Literally, the High Lords of Terra, all they would be able to do is sign off or reject assassinations. That would be the only time that they would have to do anything. There are that many assassinations.
You just give me my stamp. I have to stamp 100 of these things. Just
got
to.
He's just got a servitor to his side, anyways, with a giant stack of papers and a stamp. All it does all day, anyways, is just stamp.
Do it. Don't do it. Do it. Don't do it. It's on an automated system every other 3.
Yeah. Every 5th one is don't assassinate that guy. He's important. Why? Why not? Good point. Well, folks, that'd be it for this week. Join us next week as we go into detail on the second Ordo matures, the Ordo Xenos.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this Fox. Feel free to follow, subscribe, and comment. And don't forget to check out the shop. We got some cool stuff there, like clothes, pillows, and hats.
Oh, and don't forget rabbits, Yuksen.
Right. Don't forget the rabbits.
Have a great day. And as always,
until next time, this is Zeckthar.
And Yuksen.
Signing off.